Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Professional Brotherhood podcast. Hello, hello, Kara.
Hello, everybody.
How are you doing today?
Doing good. Getting a little snow, little flurries
Yeah, same
here
here.
in upstate New York,
Central New York.
in central New York.
Central
Right.
New York. Yeah.
Correct. Yes. We're getting
Who
the
did,
flurry.
who did we establish was really upstate? Didn't we talk to somebody that was further up than you?
Yeah, there's somebody. I mean, there's definitely people further
Oh,
up
yeah.
than.
There's yeah,
I
exactly.
mean, there's a whole world up there.
There is a whole world up there.
Right. But I always call that North Country.
True.
That's what I
Yeah.
call,
Yeah. Okay. You're right.
you know. But technically I am in central New York. That is correct.
Central New York. Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
All right. Well, now that we've established that,
We are in the
we've
world.
got that established where we are in the world. You have your coffee. I have my coffee.
I
Cheers.
need so much coffee today. Today is a day where there's literally not enough coffee ever. You just leave the pot, you just leave the Keurig on, leave the pot on. Like there's just not going to be enough coffee.
I hear you.
It's fine. Everything's fine.
That's all right. The world is better with coffee.
That's right.
So what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk a little recruitment, right?
Yeah, we're going to talk about recruitment today, and we've touched on it before in other episodes, and it continues to be such a huge challenge for volunteer departments across the country is how to get people in the door, how to let them know what you're all about. And I think that now with COVID, we're certainly experiencing a whole different type of challenge related to recruitment. So probably a really good topic to talk about right now.
For sure.
And again, as usual, I love to hear the feedback from everybody.
Yeah, so we got some good feedback off of last week's episode on elections. That was fun. Some of it was fun feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Again, interesting to hear, everybody's take on things and whether they have appointed officers or elected officers and how their elections go. Just going to bring up just before we dive into this week's topic, one of the comments that I got back, and again, because I really have no history or knowledge with appointments, because neither organization that I've belonged to had an appointment process. It was always elected. All the line officers were elected. So it was interesting to get some of the feedback on that. And one of the points that I thought was a good one was if you have hard chargers as chiefs and people that are trying to make a difference as chiefs, wouldn't you think that if they're the ones responsible for the appointments, that they would appoint people that are in line with their vision and how they typically function? And I hadn't really thought of it that way. I thought that was a good point. And I would think so. I would think if I did have appointments to make as a chief, that I would try to appoint people that are in line or have a similar work ethic as myself.
Right. You hope that that's the case.
You would hope. But again, with that being said, I'm sure there's still outside pressures on that appointment process.
Well, there's that too. And then I think it really depends very strongly on the individual. I don't know that you can say a hard charger will pick a hard charger.
Right.
Because I've seen, and I think everybody's experienced this, whether it's in your own department or just departments that you're familiar with or that you've worked with, or, because it tends to be a large but very small community. So everybody kind of knows everybody.
Mm-hmm.
You can have the type of personality that's got a very large personality, is an aggressive firefighter, is an aggressive leader, hard charger, wants to, get stuff done and do work, that appoints people that are more timid and less likely to be confrontational or challenge
Good point.
them as the alpha.
Yeah. Good point.
So
Yeah.
it really depends on the individual.
Yeah.
To say, do I want more like-minded people to myself, or do I want people that will follow my orders blindly?
Yeah. Good point. I didn't even think of that. Yeah. Definitely a good point. So there's still a lot that goes into this, and it was just cool to get the feedback. And yeah, I mean, that's what we love about doing this, is hearing what everybody's going through and what their experiences are. And they're usually a little different than ours, which is cool. So thank you to those of you that reached out to us and sent back a little feedback on last week's episode.
We are reading it, and we do want to know about it. So
Yeah, for sure.
To reach out, it's valuable for us.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about recruitment. And like you said, we've gone down this road a few times before. I mean, like my second or third episode was recruitment and retention. And you can have a lot of conversations about this. So in big news in New York State over the last couple of weeks was the fact that a task force has now been put together to look into recruitment and retention, which I hope is good. Right. I hope it's good. I hope it gives us gives the volunteers some avenues and some stats and some things to look at when it comes to maybe missed opportunities or different things to try when it comes to recruitment and retaining firefighters. But
I'm interested to see how it's going to be set up.
Yeah, I'm super interested too. I don't want to sound like a Debbie Downer. So, all right. So again, don't take this statement and be like, oh, you're being so negative. It's not about being negative. I have a hard time sometimes when politics gets involved in things, and I've got a lot of respect for a lot of the state organizations out there, but their median age concerns me when it comes to recruitment and retention. And I don't think that's a negative statement. Maybe it's our own fault and I'm far from the younger generation at this point, but the younger generation typically is not very involved in state associations, like here in New York, like FASNY, like State Chiefs, like your local, Hudson Valley or whatever you have in your area. It's typically the older generation. And my concern on a recruitment and retention task force and topic is the younger generation's input, as far as I see it, is extremely vital today.
I totally agree. And that's exactly what my line of thinking is how is it set up?
Right.
Is it just a bunch of older male,
right,
committee members?
Right.
Is there representation of different age groups? Is there representation of different gender? Is there, because if you're talking about recruitment, you don't want to only be looking for one type of firefighter.
Sure.
You want to be looking for, you want to be able, in my opinion, be able to think outside the box and look for untapped groups.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think these organizations get that, or they're being forced to get that. I haven't read the article yet, but I know in the FASNY.
Yeah, I mean, full disclosure, I don't have all the information.
Yeah, me neither. No, me neither. But I know in the FASNY magazine that's sitting up on my counter that just came in the mail like last week, I saw that Allie Rothrock wrote an article on women in the fire service. And Allie's been on the show before, and she's pretty knowledgeable when it comes to recruitment, retention, and, women in the fire service. And I actually look forward to reading that article. So I see some I see that there's some stuff on the horizon. I know we're doing some things here in my county as well, and I had some conversations with some people just saying, you know, it just typically it's just always the same old people. And when I say same old people, I don't mean same age group old people. I
Right.
mean it's like your firehouse. It's the people that are always willing to voice an opinion, that are outspoken, that are willing to raise their hand for anything they're asked to do, you know, and that's great. um, but I think when it comes to recruitment and retention, we definitely need, you know, newer, fresher, younger voices that maybe aren't even, you know, salty firefighters by any stretch of the imagination, but have a good head on their shoulders when it comes to, hey, what motivates me as a younger generation firefighter? Like, what brought me in the door? What kept me in the door? You see where I'm going?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's hugely important to give the younger firemen a voice for
Mhm.
sure. In addition to that, I think that uh, they are typically very well versed in things that are very valuable to firefighter recruitment in this day and age, such as being very social media savvy,
For sure.
being very computer and tech savvy, that kind of thing. When you're looking at some of the outreach, especially now with COVID, that we are being required to do, having the generation that was, you know, really has been really brought up completely on computer. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
computer everything is very valuable.
Sure.
And to have somebody sitting on that committee, kind of helping guide and direct it, accomplishes several things, right? You're getting that demographic, you're getting the benefit of their knowledge where maybe the older generations don't have, which is, you know, social media, computers, and technology. And then in addition to that, you're putting them in a position of leadership for them to grow into and rise to, so
Hmm.
that other people their age see that
Yep.
and see that they are being represented, and that they too have the ability to make a difference and make an impact. If you're only seeing people your age rolling hose, washing the trucks, and cleaning the station, that's not a bad thing, but that doesn't necessarily say you can do other things besides what you're currently being asked to do. So, you
Absolutely.
know, just like with any other organization or any group that's trying to accomplish a goal, representation matters.
Sure, absolutely. And look, you said two things. You know, make a difference and make an impact. People in general, but I think the younger generation more so than maybe ours and up. All right. Look, I don't like having my time wasted because I've just got, like yourself, I've got a million other things that I can be doing if my time's being wasted. Right. But I think, you know, from like our age group up, it's it's not as fast paced, like there's not as much going on maybe, but I think the younger generation is even more sensitive to time being wasted.
Right.
And if they don't feel like they're making a difference or they're making an impact, or what's going on is valuable to them, or they're being valuable to the organization, I think that's part of why they move on, right? Or they don't come around. Like if they know that you're just gonna waste their time, like you drill every week and 3 out of your 4 drills are cleaning the apparatus, and they know that, you're probably not going to continue to rope them in week after week because they don't feel like their time is being utilized for something worthwhile.
Right. And generational community is a real thing. So if
Sure.
you know, the people that are like-minded to you are people that are probably been raised in a similar environment and you had similar experiences coming up. And the younger generation below us through, and this is, I think a lot of people place blame on this, but it's not really a blamable thing. It's an instant gratification generation because of their environment.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
it's not, take something as simple as the way that they learn at school. When you and I learned at school, we did a lot of handwriting. We did a lot of like literal handwriting essays,
Right.
or, having to work on a paper meant you had to go to a library, pull research, read research from different texts and from different things like that. Not to say that I didn't use computers a lot in school. I did, but not in the way that the following generation is using computers. Now you turn something on, you enter a few words, all of the information in the universe is in front of you.
Yeah, for sure.
All the known universes information is in front of you like that.
Right.
So when you are as a child and developmentally, and that's how your brain is being taught, you can't expect those folks to have a worldview that's the same as your generational community.
Correct.
So when we are looking at tapping into those groups, and I talk about this a lot, meeting people where they're at. You can agree or disagree that it wasn't the way that you were raised, it wasn't the way that it should be, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Everybody's entitled to their opinion about it.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact remains is that is how these people view the world. That is their worldview. Right. And if you're not open to that, you're going to have a really hard time reaching them.
Absolutely.
And so then you're going to miss out on a whole group of potentially really good firefighters just because you don't like that they like the quick response and the quick interaction. Mm-hmm. And okay, I want to do this class and I want to start right now because this is when I have time to do it. And this is when my time's carved out. And if you bench me and park me for 6 months, waiting for me to find me a class, right, I'm going to lose interest. That's not necessary. I mean, it's not necessarily their fault. That's not the lifestyle that they are used to living.
Sure.
So you've got to have an awareness of that, and you've got to have an ability to work within that scope.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit more about social media, right? I am a big proponent of the use of social media for recruitment and right. and a portion for retention. Look, this show, this platform that you and I are speaking on is essentially successful because of social media, right? It's that simple, right? We reach people that we would never in a million years reach if it wasn't for social media. You can't deny that fact. The same thing goes for your organization. Now, I know that there are still agencies out there that are they tread very, very lightly when it comes to the use of social media. They don't believe in it for one reason or another. And not to say if in the wrong hands, it can be very dangerous to your organization as well. Right? Absolutely. But those are the things that you need to realize, right? So if your agency is not utilizing platforms like Facebook and Instagram to promote the agency, and you're somebody that thinks that could be an asset to your agency, and maybe you're the person that could help with that, I think you need to understand that you need to go into it knowing that there needs to be hard, fast rules and regulations for what you can do, what you can post, and how you utilize the platform. I know for me, when my agency decided to put up a Facebook page, I brought the idea in, and I wanted a committee of like 3 or 4 of us to do it. Mm-hmm. And they were agreeable to doing it, but they were like, no, we don't want 3 or 4 people. We want 1 person. That's it. You handle it. And part of me didn't want that responsibility because I didn't want to be like the one that was making this, hey, this is good, this isn't good. But I understood the reason behind that, because as long as the person that you have doing it is smart about it, right. That's a good way to go, because there's no, if it was you and I were running a page and you post something and I'm like, oh, Kara, what the hell are you thinking? Well, like, why would you post? It's solely you. You're like, you're it. You're the fall guy or girl. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. but I think that, I think that use of these pages for recruitment is extremely important because, like you said, this is where our younger generation is spending their time.
Right.
Right? This is where they're spending their time. All right. And some of them would argue, well, they're not spending their time on Facebook. They're spending their time on Instagram or TikTok or Twitter or whatever it is. But they're spending their time on social media.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're thinking about potentially serving the community, becoming a volunteer firefighter, whatever put their brain down that road, and they can go to a page and start looking and be like, wow, look at all the great things that this organization is doing. Oh, and hey, I know that person, and I know that person, and I know that person. Maybe I will go down to the firehouse and hand in an application. And this is just the start of it, right?
Right. I agree. And then you do have the other side. I mean, this is why social media practices, kind of having some guidelines or rules, is so important to have, right, for your organization, because in the court of public opinion, you're not ever going to be looked upon favorably. It's always going to be a judgment, and whether or not the judgment of what you're doing is good or what you're doing is bad,
right,
that makes a difference about what you're posting. If you're looking at recruitment, I think that the more exposure you have to putting your organization in a good light
for sure,
is absolutely vital, and super important to do. I think that in addition to social media, tapping into any other things that you have in your community, don't only use social media.
No.
Right. But the thing that you have to watch out for is, what are other people in your organization, how are they displaying your organization on their personal pages? That's something that needs to be talked about and addressed, because if you're a firefighter and you're wearing your department t-shirt or whatever, and you are acting like a jackass on TikTok, it doesn't show your organization in a favorable light. Even though it's your personal page, you still have to think about that.
And people get jammed up for that all the time. And again, this isn't a generational thing. It doesn't matter if you are 18 and you post something stupid on your personal social media, or you're a 40-year, 55-year-old chief that posts something stupid on your personal Facebook page. It doesn't matter. You can you can bang on your chest and say, well, it's my personal page. Tough shit, like it or don't like it. That's great. I mean, you can come at it with that, with that attitude. But the fact of the matter is, if the court of public opinion doesn't like what you did or had to say, especially in today's day and age, if you went down some of those dangerous roads with politics or race or what have you, it doesn't matter. You're going to find yourself, it happened not too far, 30 miles from here in the last 6 months. You're going to find yourself in the media. You're going to find yourself all over Facebook or social media news sites, right? So great, it's your personal page. That's wonderful. But you are representing something bigger than yourself, which is the organization.
Even if you say you weren't in that moment, you still are. They're going to tar you all with the same brush,
right?
No matter what. So it's vital to have those conversations with your members and let them know what your policies are. And I think, like, even right now with COVID, you get like the mask police. They see one picture of a firefighter and they don't care that it was taken 2 years ago. Right. If you don't explicitly say this is a pre-COVID picture of training, that's why no one has masks on. Somebody is going to be calling your station, your chief, your municipality, whatever, to complain that you're not compliant. Like, there's always going to be somebody out there that is just solely looking at you just to see if they can jam you up.
Right. For sure. Absolutely.
Right. So I would argue that using your social media more for recruitment and more and really focusing on using the social media as putting your organization in a good light only,
Mm-hmm.
it solves a multitude of problems.
Yeah.
If that's really all you're using your social media for, is to say, this is what we can do for you, the community, this is what we can do for you as an individual, I mean, even if you want to do a couple posts, not only just about your organization, where you are, who you're, who's involved in your organization, what kind of skills and training you use at your organization, because not all departments are different. Some are strictly fire, some are fire EMS,
Sure.
some are, have run an ambulance corps, some of them are strict rescue, some of them have special teams.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're highlighting all of that on your social media, you're reaching a broader range of people to get them in the door and learn more about your organization.
Right.
And that's really key. I mean, just to put it out there to pique somebody's interest and to have them come in to get more information makes a huge amount of difference. We had a gentleman who is in his probably in his like 50s, right? So computer guy saw, we put out every spring, we put out some recruitment signs in the village and in people's lawns and things like that. And he had seen one of those and thought, I'm going to come down and see if I can help them with some of their computer stuff. Maybe I'll just, be their IT guy, see if I can help. That was what his mindset was. He only wanted to do IT and tech for the department on a volunteer basis, which was awesome,
Sure.
But once he came down there and started talking to everybody and took a tour of the station and saw some of the stuff that we do and talked to some of the officers, he ended up doing all his interior qualifications. He ended up becoming EMT and is a fully dedicated member, and now doesn't do any computer stuff
Right.
for
Yeah.
us
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he wasn't necessarily in his mindset, but it got him in the door.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I want to go down another rabbit hole, but just something to, to point out, based on what you said a few minutes ago, the other thing that these highlights of your organization does, aside from the recruitment and retention point and showing it also shows your customers, i.e. your tax base, right? where their money's going, right?
Right.
What you're doing, the fact that you didn't just buy a $675,000 fire engine, but you're training on that fire engine every week, and that you're doing this, and that because we can't count on the everyday news media to highlight what our organization is doing, right? I mean, granted, if there's a great big, once every 10-year fire, we're going to be in the news. But we all know that we do a lot more than that, day in, day out, week after week, right? So that's another thing. You're constantly highlighting all the things that your membership is doing,
Right.
that the average homeowner, citizen, customer probably doesn't know, right? They think, oh, the fire department. I had a guy drop something off calls me a few weeks ago to drop something off at the firehouse. He didn't understand why he came to the firehouse looking to drop something off and there was nobody there.
Yeah. Yeah. They
Right?
don't know.
He
They don't
didn't
know.
know.
They assume that we're sleeping there.
Right.
Right. And some volunteer organizations, they do have bunk in, like you're sleeping
Sure.
there shift or whatever. In my personal organization, we do not, and I think that, to your point, the public doesn't know. They don't
Right.
know what volunteer really means. They don't understand that, depending on how your organization is run, you could just be on a shift, once a week or twice a week.
Yep.
That's your time that you're giving. Or if the more traditional way is that when you get a call, whoever is available goes.
Right. Right.
And
Yeah.
I think that I think the general public does not understand that at all.
Right. And the other thing that you have to, when, again, talking about recruitment is, for years and years and years, agencies depended on, their community, which was, didn't change a lot, right? In some areas. In some areas, this is probably still true. But in a lot of parts of the state, you have people moving around, moving into your community, right? I mean, right now, it's no secret. There's a mass exodus from the city. There's people moving into whatever portion you want to call upstate, which is
Right.
out of the city, right?
Right.
So to
Anywhere out of New York City,
somebody that
yeah.
lives in Manhattan, Westchester's upstate, so there's a mass exodus of people. There's people moving into your community, and that don't know that a volunteer organization exists. And again, now they may spot you on social media or at a community function like we started talking about before, and they're like, oh wow, that's something I always like wanted to do, but life didn't lead me in that direction.
Hmm.
Wow, maybe I could do this now,
Right. Right.
so you have people, again, not necessarily always the younger generation, could be somebody in their 40s or 50s or 60s, like you said before, that are
Mhm.
like, hey, wow,
What can you do?
I always thought about being a firefighter, and now
Right.
maybe I can be a
Yeah.
firefighter or do something at the firehouse.
Right. So social media is going to be, I mean, it's here to stay. You have to learn how to operate with it. You have to learn how to work with it. You have to learn how to do it effectively, and make it sustainable, right? Because it's not going away. It's only getting bigger. Um, and then other things that you have to do, you have to look outside of just that. You can't have a unilateral approach to recruitment.
Right. So I know, before you go there, I want to say one more thing about social media, because I have a feeling I know where you're going to go next.
Okay.
But before we leave the social media aspect, one more point I want to make, and this is again a piece of advice. So if you're looking to put something together for your organization, and maybe you have somebody in mind, or maybe you're the person that you have in mind, right? Know your strengths and weaknesses, right?
Mhm.
You could be very good with the technology of social media. I know people that are very, very good with the technology aspect, but when it comes to creating copy and writing things that actually make sense and read professionally, that is not their lane. That is not their avenue.
Mhm.
So if you're the one that's essentially going to be in charge of this and putting this together, and that's not you, you might want to seek some help
Right.
in that portion of it, because it's also very, very, you can have the greatest picture with what you think is the greatest message, but if you can't write that message, it's not gonna do what you're looking for it to do. So if writing and the English language and copy is not your thing, ask for some help.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Now we can
Talk about other venues.
talk about other venues. Have at it.
Um, well, as we know right now with COVID, it's very challenging. Some of the things that we would normally do, go out to schools, go out to community groups, those kind of things are severely restricted or on pause right now.
Yeah.
So it does present a challenge. But if COVID wasn't around, there are a lot of venues that I think that um, people can do
Hmm.
that aren't necessarily something that they're thought of. So I think obviously we've talked about this before, connecting it to your fire prevention, your public education,
Yeah.
um, is hugely important, right? Because you've got an audience and they're there to listen to you and they know you're coming and they're interested and whatever. And even if you're talking to a really young group of kids or whatever, typically there's teachers there, there's parents there, there's chaperones there,
Sure.
there's other people there that you can talk to about recruitment, right? The high schools and the local colleges are hugely important as well. So you can't discount them. We have a local college here for my organization, and in the past we've had some really good firefighters come out of it and work with us while they're here with us. So
Yeah.
that's a venue that can be explored. Something as simple as like setting up a booth at your local like farmers markets
Hmm.
is something that I don't think a lot of firemen think about doing, but you get a really good crowd, and it's typically a relaxed environment. People are there. You can set up a booth, have your brochures and pamphlets and applications there
Yeah.
available. Have a couple guys there for them to talk to about training, about what it takes, about how your organization is run. It's a really, things like that, thinking outside the box. Instead of just always having an open house and everybody come to us, everybody come to us, everybody
Right.
come to us. looking for those opportunities to get out into the community and talk to the people that you're serving, as well as trying to recruit additional volunteers, is vastly helpful.
Yeah, yeah. And again, like anything else, but you have to make sure that the people that are doing this stuff
Right.
are knowledgeable about the fire service and knowledgeable about your organization. Goes back to that time wasting thing. You can have great printed material, you can have a beautiful booth, a nice table in your, high school cafeteria with a, great banner with a logo on it. But if you send whoever happens to be available that day, and that person has absolutely no clue as to what the hell they're talking about, they're just going to be wasting people's time, right? And people are going to pick up on that. So, again, this is where you might need to look at your organization and kind of dissect it a little bit. Like if I were thinking for you and I was going to send a group to a high school, and I knew that a guy like Joe, who we had on the show, was available, I would probably try to send Joe, right? Because he's personable, he's smart, he's a nice kid. I would probably send a guy like that and be like, hey, we're going to the high school next week. Are you, please, are you available? Because
Right.
he can relate to the people he's talking to. You don't want to send the 75-year-old 50-year member who could be the greatest guy in the world, but they just, they're looking at that guy going, oh, grandpa, isn't he cute?
Right.
But they're not, you know
And work with the school
yeah,
and ask them if, if you've got juniors that are in attendance that day, ask them if they can be pulled out of class for a little bit to do the community service event.
sure,
I mean,
absolutely,
it's not unheard of, but let's let the juniors talk to their peers
yeah,
in a organized fashion, not just in passing about, what they did at drill or whatever,
yeah,
but have them be seen as a professional. It provides them with a great amount of skill, right? We want them
yep,
to learn how to be good public speakers. We want them to learn how to talk about fire prevention and be able to do pub ed and all the things that need to be done outside of just going in the front door, right? So it helps them.
yep,
Most high schools give credit or require volunteer service and community service credit. So if you're doing an event at their school anyway, and they can miss a couple periods of class,
hmm,
why not? And to your point, they're going to make a much better connection with their peer group than me or the guy that's
yeah,
been there for 70
yeah.
years that only wants to talk about
We're out of school 5 years already. I mean,
at least. I have to go repeat. I have to go repeat in school. I'm on remedial lesson.
yeah,
Fine. I'm gonna get there. I'm really
yeah,
gonna get there. Perpetual student, right?
yeah. Well,
Um,
look, yeah, that it's all
but if
extremely
you're,
important.
on to that same token, if you have a group like a Legion, or if you have if there's some kind of civic men's group or a Rotary group or something
Hmm.
like that, and you wanted to have people talk to that, you may get some people that say, well, I'm too old, they're in their 60s or whatever. I'm too old. I don't want to go through all the interior training and stuff like that. Are you interested in EMS? Are you interested in being an operator? Do you want to
Yeah,
drive? Do you want to learn
right,
how to pump? You know, those kind of things. We need drivers, we need operators, right?
right,
So
right.
making sure that you're individualizing the experience, knowing your audience, and sending a representative from your agency who is able to recognize their audience and carry out a conversation in a professional manner that is applicable to who they're talking to
Sure,
is the way to go.
sure. And let's talk about something that we've mentioned, maybe the last episode. I know we've mentioned it before. Um, to your point of who are we recruiting, who's coming in, what are they looking to do, right? Because not everybody is coming in looking to be an interior firefighter, and that should be okay, right?
Mhm.
But maybe they are looking to just be exterior fire police or a pump operator. Some of us have to take a good hard look at our rules and regulations that we have in place that might hinder a person from going a different avenue right out of the gate. Because a lot of our bylaws and rules and regulations are written towards our scene support and interior firefighters. They're not written towards other potential avenues. And
Mhm.
if somebody comes in and has the potential of being a great pump operator or engineer, and your rules and regulations are written in such a way that that's not possible for them for 3 to 5 years, that might be a hard road to travel, right?
Right.
Because they're not going to waste 3 to 5 years of their time doing nothing, right?
Right.
I think that's another part of this, recruitment that we need to take a hard look at is, do we have a pathway for people other than the people we're used to bringing in?
Right. Because it's all connected. Everything we
Sure.
do in the organization is connected. All right. Nothing is working, by itself.
Right.
So if you're having a problem with recruitment and you think that it's only because nobody wants to volunteer anymore
Right.
or nobody's service oriented anymore, that's probably a very narrow view, and that is again, I've talked about this before, a problem oriented leadership approach, right?
Yeah.
If you're in a leadership position and you are problem oriented, you are only identifying the problem and then the conversation stops.
Right.
If you are solution oriented, then you are saying, this is the problem. What are all the things that are connected to this
Hmm.
that may be able to be addressed and fixed so that we can move forward? So if you are not looking at your bylaws and you're not looking at what your pathway is for training your recruits, you are going to cut yourself off at the knees,
Sure.
right? You also have to look at your onboarding process,
Hmm.
not just like, okay, getting them in the front door, but then what? Are
Right.
we taking 3 weeks to call somebody back? Are we losing the application on the pile of papers in the
Yeah.
desk?
Yeah. Yeah.
Are we missing pieces of our application process and onboarding process that we need for vital information? Like, did they complete their application thoroughly? Are all the lines checked? Do we know their date of birth? Do we know their phone number so that we can do their arson check and their background check? Do
Right.
we know their address? Do we know what size equipment and gear that they need?
Right.
Like, if you're not looking at your processes, you're setting yourself up for failure.
Sure. 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 And look, going back to what I just said, because somebody's going to listen to that, and if they don't listen to it more than once, they're probably going to say, "Oh, well, Jesus, is he saying now that we don't have to, that we don't have to have a training process for those people?" No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that if somebody comes in that is capable of being a good pump operator, I'm not saying that you don't train them, that you don't send them to school. I'm not saying that just because Jim drives a propane truck for 40 years of his life and he's a good driver doesn't mean that Jim can walk in the door and drive a $700,000 fire engine down the road, red lights and siren. I'm saying that you should take that skill, all right, and if that's what that person is interested in, make sure that you have a pathway for them to go down that road, right?
Right.
Whether it's, scene support and then apparatus operator pump or whatever it may be, evoc, all right, and then in-house training, all right, whatever that pathway is, just make sure there's a pathway. Make sure that it's not written somewhere that, well, before Jim can even touch a piece of fire apparatus, that he has to be a member for 4 years and has to go to scene support and firefighter one and this one and that one and all these classes that maybe have absolutely nothing to do with what Jim's knowledge and expertise can be.
Right. And even something as simple as saying the order that you have to take your classes in.
Yes. Correct.
I mean, if that's organizationally based, I mean,
Yes.
obviously, state classes here in New York State all have prerequisites. You have to take this before you take this. That's not what I'm
Right.
talking about. I'm
Sure.
talking about you as an organization are saying you can't. We're not going to allow you or sign off on you taking this class until you have done this class, because that's our organizational preference.
Correct.
That can be very challenging because especially if you're trying to train on like, state and county level, you're reliant on when those classes are being offered.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a person that's on a pathway to become a pump operator, and evoc is available first, but you say they have to have scene support first, and there's not a scene support for 6 months because one already started or whatever,
Right.
but there's evoc next weekend, and you're saying, well, you can't take that. What message is that sending?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Yeah. I agree with you
You're
100%.
not being proactive. You're having people sit on their hands when they are, you want to catch them at that enthusiasm level.
Yeah.
When they are interested and they're coming in and they're telling you they want to commit their time
Mm-hmm.
to serving, that's when you want to catch them at that level and try to get them started on a class like as soon as possible, or start getting them into your next training as soon as possible.
Sure. Because
To
you
keep
want
that
to strike when the iron is hot. And that's
right.
basically what you're doing, you know?
Right. Keep the enthusiasm going. And the pathway that you set them up for has to be a pathway to success. It can't
Right.
be a pathway to a brick wall.
Right. For sure. For sure. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about, and I think this is probably a good one to end with. All right. Let's talk about tying training or training opportunities and recruitment. Okay. Because you and I have had this conversation a lot off air. All right. And we talked about it a couple of times on the podcast because of the negative approach that you see a lot of times when it comes to training and recruitment and retention, right? There's always oh, well, we're not recruiting firefighters because the training requirements are X. Okay.
Right.
And then you've got those of us that are saying, well, the training requirements are X. They should always be X.
Mm-hmm.
And X shouldn't be the excuse for why we're not recruiting people, right? Because we can't go back 30 years and say that you need 39 hours of essentials of firemanship and boom, you're a fire. You've never been in a burning structure, but boom, you're a firefighter. Okay.
You've
God
never
bless. Yeah.
never
God
trained your
bless.
own
Have a
equipment.
nice life. Right. Right. So this is a discussion that happens quite a bit, and you usually see training lumped in with recruitment and retention as a problem. Okay. And obviously you've got those of us that are like, well, training's training and we got to be trained and we got to be held to the same standard, same job, yada, 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 all that stuff. All right. But now where I think COVID is helping us, right, looking into the future, is it has forced us in the fire service to kind of get with the times,
Mm-hmm.
right? And when I say get with the times, I'm talking about hybrid opportunities, online opportunities, and these opportunities um, do make the training aspect not easier, but maybe more suitable for more people.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, again, talking New York, because that's our lane, right? A few years back, New York had a what they called a blended firefighter one program, which is where you did all your book work online at home, right? And the only time you came to class was to do skills. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I had some experiences with those deliveries. I thought they were phenomenal. Okay. For a few reasons. But I think, and you're going to start, and you're going to start seeing that stuff come back again. And I think you're going to start seeing it come back in other parts of the country as well, because first of all, we're being forced to do it right now, right?
Right.
But a good hybrid program can and will cut down on the in-person time that somebody has to give up and allows them to do a good portion of the work on their time frame, on their schedule, within, you know,
Mm-hmm.
within limits. Obviously you have deadlines and due dates and things like that, but I think that is a big pathway to our future, is more hybrid, blended, online, whatever you want to call it, opportunities reinforced by hands-on skills.
Yes. And I think that that's where mentorship becomes huge, because you need to have that resource person at the station. If
Yes.
you're doing a lot more independent online work and you're not in a classroom setting, um, having a mentor that you can say, hey, I'm learning about this and I need to see what it looks like, hands-on. Can you meet me down at the station for
Sure.
15 minutes and go over this skill sheet with me? Or, hey, I'm studying this right now and we're on this section and I'm unclear what this means for our particular department,
Hmm.
because they're talking about, master streams or whatever. And like, I don't know what we have, I don't know
Right.
what we have.
Right. I know we don't have a tower ladder, so
Right. Yeah. Like,
yeah,
right. Like,
right.
they're talking about this and I don't know what a quint is, like, so,
Right.
so having a mentor, somebody that you can reach out to and connect with, especially if you're going to do a hybrid program, is vastly important
Hmm.
to not feeling like you're just, totally lost, because I think that people can really lose confidence if you're trying to do something. I like the hybrid model. I think that to your point, it's extremely valuable and it will continue to be more prevalent, and it's great that way. But if you are missing out on that face-to-face instructor time, just for even like the written and reading portions, you
Right.
still need somebody that can help you apply those skills directly.
Sure. And again, though, really student dependent. All right. Because
Yes, not everybody's going to do well with that.
right. Because in my experience, when I hand a student a textbook, right, that's like this, and I'm like, all right, here's your textbook. All right. Obviously, I'm going to be teaching X, Y, and Z units, right? And it's important to listen and pay attention to what I'm telling you, to what I'm instructing, but I'm not going to hit on every single thing that's in that great big textbook that's in your hand. So in addition to listening to me for X amount of time, you need to actually read that thing that I just handed you, right? And look, I'm not casting stones because this guy right here, not
Not
the
a reader.
reader. Not the reader. Okay. So again, I'm not throwing stones at people that don't like studying and reading, because I'm that guy. Not my favorite thing in the world to do. Right.
Right.
But what a lot of these hybrid opportunities do is, first of all, because a lot of them are pre and post tested, right?
Mhm.
They kind of force you to do some of that, right? Whether it's actually opening the book and reading it or playing a video that's going to read to you, right?
Mhm.
So in my experience, I have found that a lot with certain students, the knowledge portion on that model is actually better than when they depend on just listening to me. Because when they're listening to me, they're like, screw the book. I don't need the book. I'll just go listen to him every week. You know?
Right.
Yeah, I don't need it. But
Right.
when they're forced to, when you say, hey, listen, we're having a skills day next Saturday. Before you
Mhm.
come to that skills day, you have to complete units 1, 2, and 3 of whatever program we're teaching. All right. And you have to, test out on those 3 units. And when you've successfully, if you successfully complete that, you're allowed to come to the skill session. But if you don't, well,
Mhm.
sorry, Charlie,
Right.
you're not
You're
moving,
not
you're
allowed.
not moving along. Uh,
Right.
for certain people, I think the knowledge aspect is increased. Now, again, like you said, not not for everybody,
Mhm.
right? Not everything is for everybody.
Right. But it's a good option to have.
For sure. Yeah.
The
Yep.
more options that you have to get people in, get people trained, get people working,
Yep.
the better.
Yeah. And that's when it comes to training. That's, I think, the important piece, right? Is that we just need to have more options. I don't like, and I know you agree with this, I just don't like the way it's presented sometimes. Like, this is the problem. This is why we have no recruitment.
Right.
This is it. Because unfortunately, a lot of times the people that buy into that message
Mhm.
are not the ones that are looking for other ways to do it, right? They don't see they don't see the importance of the training, and they're not like, oh, we absolutely have to have this training. They're like, oh, no, it's the training's fault. Okay,
Right.
well, what do you suggest we do? Well, we can't have as much, it shouldn't be as many hours.
Hmm.
Well, how is that,
Right.
how is that possible?
And
So
how's
you,
that helping anyone?
right. And how is that helping anybody?
It's not
So it,
helping your firemen, and it's not helping your public.
right. So essentially what you're telling me is you want to have an extremely successful recruitment program, and bring in lots of people that are essentially going to be untrained and not be able to do the job that you're signing them up to do.
Hmm.
Hmm. I don't know.
Right. Right. Problem oriented.
Yeah. Yes. Problem oriented
That's
for
what it
sure.
is.
For sure. For sure.
Right.
Um, so we started, and I mentioned some of the organizations that are out there in the beginning. And again, I don't want to come off like I'm negative on that, because I definitely am not. All right. But I do think you need, if you're listening to this and you feel that you have some special skills, um, some thoughts on the topic in your area, and the organizations that typically take up this kind of fight, um, get involved. Right.
Mhm.
Again, don't sit in the back and complain that nobody's doing anything. Go out and try to get involved. What's happening here in New York with the task force. I hope that it is. I hope that it's successful.
Mhm.
Um, I'd love to have, you know to get involved. I don't even know what that takes. Like you and I, we don't know we don't even know who makes it up at this point, right? We
Right.
don't. We
Right.
really don't know. But don't poo-poo on those state organizations, because just because I said they are typically the older generation, they also come with lots of resources, lots of financing, lots of things that can help all of us when it comes to this type of conversation, of recruitment and retention. All right. And that's important. All right. So that's important to all of us, I think.
Absolutely. It has value, and those folks certainly, you know, have hopefully a breadth of experience, or, maybe they have created a successful recruitment program
Hmm.
for the departments that they've been on, and they're bringing that to the table. I mean, it's really going to be interesting to see how it evolves and how it plays out, and if it's, mainly fact finding and information finding, or if they're going to bring resources to volunteer departments for them to put into place, um, to build successful recruitment programming.
Yeah.
It's one thing to say, hey, if you stop by, we'll give you a stack of posters and a stack of brochures and you can hand them out. It's another thing to provide resources for people to come out and view your organization objectively, give you feedback on what you could be doing to boost your recruitment as an individual department. I mean, there's a big scope of what a task force
Yeah.
can mean.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And listen, and if you're thinking about what I just said and you're like, oh, I can't, I have no pathway to get involved on like the state level. Maybe there's something going on your local level. All
Hmm.
right. And if you have input, or you want to provide input or be a part of whatever's going on your local level, guys, don't sit back all the time and wait for people to come to you. Right. Like, if I could throw any message out there, I know so many people that have gone through their career and they wonder why, they never got involved in other stuff, and they bitch that they never get asked to do anything. Right.
Mhm.
Listen, being asked is nice. It's always nice when somebody calls you up and says, hey, I see you're knowledgeable on this. Would you want to be a part of what we're doing? I mean, that's always nice. It's a feather in your cap. It makes you feel good. All right. But it doesn't happen all the time, and it doesn't happen a lot. Sometimes you just need to pick up the phone or shoot a text message or send an email and say, hey, listen, I heard that this is going on locally. I hear that we're putting together this group to look at this problem. I feel that I can provide some good feedback and knowledge, and based on whatever in my past, I'd love to be a part of it. You know,
Right.
and
Right.
you might be surprised. You might get a phone call back saying, "Hey, I appreciate it. Thanks for reaching out. We're having a meeting next week." You know,
Right.
or you might, you might not get anything back. But you know what? If you put yourself out there, kudos to you for doing so,
Right.
because
Maybe surprised.
right, absolutely, absolutely. So good stuff.
Good stuff.
Good stuff. All right. All right, let's close it out. As always, please keep the feedback coming.
Please do.
We love the feedback. All right, and you can do that via email. All right, as always, professionalvff@gmail.com, professionalvff@gmail.com, or you can reach us through social. Instagram at professional.brotherhood, at st.florianfitness, or on Facebook, St. Florian Fitness, or you can go Chief Solar or the Professional Brotherhood and find us on Facebook. You can link to everything through the webpage. So if you're like, oh, I just can't find these guys on social, which you should be able to do. If you go to the webpage, professionalbrotherhood.com, there's links to everything we're doing, right? There's links to the YouTube page, which the numbers have been phenomenal on the YouTube page, by the way. So thank you for those of you tuning in via YouTube and subscribing and watching us versus listening to us. We appreciate it. But you can link to the YouTube page. You can link to the store. You can link to Kara's page, the blog, where we've been posting some supplementary information. Again, the episode with Tim Ahern that we did, a bunch of the information from his episode is up in the blog section. So get on the webpage, sign up. Keep the feedback coming, because we love it. And if you have a potential guest or you want to join us on the show, please drop us a line.
Absolutely.
Right?
Love to hear from you.
Absolutely. So again, my friends, thanks for tuning in today to yet another episode of the Professional Brotherhood. Please don't forget, a paycheck does not make you a professional. How you approach the job does. Until next time, stay healthy and stay safe.
Bye.
Bye-bye.